Look at this map. Seriously, look at it. See those glowing dots spreading across the United States like someone spilled stars across the continent? Each one represents people, thousands of them, packed into cities, sprawling across suburbs, clustering along coasts. Now look at this giant black void in the middle, an 800-mile wide hole where the lights just stop. This isn't Alaska. This isn't some remote corner nobody's ever heard of. This is smack in the middle of the continental United States, a zone larger than France and Germany combined with fewer people than Brooklyn. And here's the thing that'll mess with your head. This isn't an accident. This emptiness, it's by design. There are 3 invisible walls keeping people out. Walls you can't see on any map. Walls that have locked down an area the size of Western Europe for over a century. So let me show you something wild. Pull up any population density map of America, and you'll see it immediately. The East Coast glows like fire. California blazes. Texas spreads like a constellation. But then there's this massive geographic scar running through Nevada, Utah, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana. A void so complete, so absolute that when you zoom in hoping to find even a small town, there's nothing. Just mountain ranges with no names and valleys where nobody lives. We're talking about America's empty quarter, and today we're going to solve the mystery of why it exists. Let's start with some numbers that'll make you question everything you thought you knew about America. Wyoming, the least populated state, has 6 people per square mile. 6. You could drive for an hour and see maybe 30 people. Compare that to New Jersey with over 1,200 people per square mile. That's a 200-fold difference. In the same country, but Wyoming's just the poster child. Nevada, mostly empty. Utah, huge chunks of nothing. Montana? They call it Big Sky Country because there's literally nobody there to block your view. Eastern Oregon, Eastern Washington, Western Idaho, all carving out this massive block of American territory that looks like someone just forgot to colonize it. Here's what gets me. We're not talking about bad land. We're not talking about some godforsaken swamp or frozen tundra. We're talking about an area with some of the most dramatic landscapes on Earth. Soaring mountain ranges, crystal clear lakes, vast high desert plateaus, bathed in 300 days of sunshine per year, and yet nobody. You want to understand how weird this is? Let's play a game. Take a map of Europe. Draw a circle around an area the size of Nevada and Utah combined. That circle would contain, conservatively, 50 million people. Probably more. In Nevada and Utah, less than 7 million. And most of those are crammed into exactly 3 cities: Las Vegas, Salt Lake City, and Reno. The rest is silence. This isn't how countries develop. When you look at China, India, Europe, even Africa, people spread out. They fill in the spaces. They build towns and valleys, cities along rivers, settlements wherever there's flat land and water. But not here. Here, there's an 800-mile diameter zone where America just said no. And that raises the obvious question. Why? What makes this place so special that an entire nation collectively decided to leave it empty? The answer isn't one thing. It's 3 invisible walls. 3 barriers so powerful, so absolute, that they've kept this region empty for over 150 years. And we're going to tear down each one. The first wall is made of mountains. Specifically, it's made of the Sierra Nevada and the Cascade Range. And these aren't just any mountains. They're a theft operation on a continental scale. Here's how the heist works. Moist air rolls in from the Pacific Ocean, fat with water vapor, ready to dump rain across the American West. But then it hits the Sierra Nevada. 14,000-foot peaks that force that air to climb. And as it climbs, it cools. And as it cools, the moisture condenses. And as it condenses, it falls as rain. Or snow. Tons of it. The western slopes of the Sierra Nevada get drenched. Some areas receive over 100 inches of precipitation per year, but here's where it gets brutal. Once that air crests the mountains and starts descending the other side, It's been completely wrung out, bone dry. And as it descends, it warms up, which makes it even thirstier. So now you have this hot, dry wind screaming down the eastern slopes, sucking up whatever moisture is there. It's called the rain shadow effect, and it's why Death Valley, just east of the Sierra Nevada, is one of the driest places on Earth. Less than 2 inches of rain per year. In some spots, entire years pass with zero measurable precipitation. This isn't just about Death Valley, though. This rain shadow blankets the entire Great Basin. That's the official name for this region, the Great Basin. A massive, elevated desert stretching from the Sierra Nevada in California to the Wasatch Range in Utah. And it's dry. Not Sahara dry, but dry enough that farming without irrigation is basically impossible. Dry enough that trees don't grow in most valleys. Dry enough that you can drive for 100 miles and not cross a single river. Because here's the thing, the Great Basin isn't empty because it's hot. Phoenix is hot. Las Vegas is hot. Those cities exist. The Great Basin is empty because it is bone dry at altitude. High elevation desert. The valleys here sit at 4,000 to 5,000 feet above sea level. Cold in winter, scorching in summer, and dry all year round. Annual rainfall? 7 to 12 inches if you're lucky. That's less than Syria, less than the Sahel region of Africa. You can't build a city without water. And the Sierra Nevada stole all the water. But wait, there's actually some land here that does get decent rainfall. The mountains themselves. Snowpack builds up every winter in the Ruby Mountains, the Snake Range, the Wasatch. So why aren't there cities in the mountains? That brings us to wall number 2. The big one. The wall that makes all the others look tiny. Okay, here's where it gets wild. Even if you wanted to build a town in the Great Basin, even if you found a spot with water, even if you had the perfect mountain valley with a river running through it, you can't. Because you don't own the land. The federal government does. Let me give you a number that'll blow your mind. In Nevada, the federal government owns 80.1% of the entire state. Read that again. 80.1%. 4 out of every 5 acres in Nevada belong to Uncle Sam. You cannot buy them. You cannot build on them. You cannot develop them. They are locked away forever under federal ownership. Utah, 63% federal land. Idaho, 62%. Oregon, 53%. Montana, Wyoming, New Mexico, Arizona, all hovering around 40 to 50% federal ownership. This isn't normal. This doesn't exist anywhere else in America. Connecticut and Iowa, 0.3% federal land each. That's essentially zero. But here in the empty quarter, the government is the landlord, and the government isn't selling. And it's not just that the government owns the land, it's what agency owns it. Because if it was national parks, okay, that's understandable. We protect Yellowstone, we protect Yosemite, that makes sense. But most of this land isn't national parks. It's Bureau of Land Management land. BLM, and BLM land has one purpose: preserve it exactly as it is. In Nevada alone, BLM controls 47.3 million acres. That's 84% of all federal land in the state. It's more BLM land than exists in any other state except Alaska. And what does BLM do with that land? Mostly nothing. They manage it for grazing rights, some mining leases, the occasional recreational use. But they don't develop it. They don't sell it. They don't let people build cities on it. Because the entire philosophy of BLM is, this land stays empty. Here's where it gets really dark. Remember how we said some areas do have water? Some mountain valleys have streams, rivers, even lakes? Doesn't matter. If the BLM owns it, you can't touch it. There are entire counties in Nevada where 90+% of the land is federally owned. You could be a billionaire with dreams of building a mountain resort, and you literally cannot find land to buy. There isn't any for sale. The government owns it, and the government isn't selling. Clark County, where Las Vegas sits, has been screaming about this for years. They've been warning that Las Vegas only has enough private land available for about 5 more years of growth. After that, they're boxed in. BLM land surrounds them on all sides. Some lots in the middle of urban areas are BLM land. It's absurd. You have one of the fastest growing cities in America being strangled to death because the federal government refuses to release land. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is documented policy. When Nevada, Utah, and the other western states joined the Union, they were forced to disclaim interest in public lands as a condition of statehood. They had to promise in writing that all the unsettled land would belong to the federal government forever. And the federal government has kept that land locked down ever since. Over 150 years of federal ownership, preserving a void in the middle of America that gets bigger and emptier with every passing decade. So you can't build here because of the rain shadow, and you can't build here because the government owns everything. But surely the private land that does exist, the 15 to 30% that isn't federal, surely that's being developed. Right? Which brings us to Wall 3. The final wall, the wall that makes everything else almost irrelevant. Even if you own private land in the Great Basin, even if you somehow bought a 10,000-acre ranch in the middle of nowhere, Nevada, with dreams of building the next great American city, you have one insurmountable problem. There is no water. Not in the sense that water is scarce. I mean, there's literally no legal water allocation left. Every drop has been claimed. Every river has been divided. Every aquifer has been parceled out. And it all happened over 100 years ago with something called the Colorado River Compact of 1922. Here's what happened. In 1922, 7 western states sat down to divide up the water from the Colorado River, the only major river system in the entire region. And they made an agreement. 7.5 million acre-feet per year to the upper basin states. 7.5 million acre-feet per year to the lower basin states. Plus another 1.5 million acre-feet per year reserved for Mexico under a later treaty. Do the math. That's 16.5 million acre-feet per year total. Sounds like a lot, right? It would be, if the Colorado River actually produced that much water. But here's the punchline. It doesn't. Never did. The compact was negotiated during an abnormally wet period from 1905 to 1922. The negotiators assumed the river would always produce that much water. They were wrong. Tree ring studies now show the long-term average flow of the Colorado is more like 13 to 14 million acre-feet per year. They over-allocated by 20 to 30%, but it gets worse. Because those allocations went to specific cities: Los Angeles, Phoenix, Las Vegas, San Diego, Denver, Salt Lake City. Every drop of the Colorado River was spoken for by 1922, and it was all given to cities that already existed. There's no water left for new cities. None. Zero. If you wanted to build a new city in Nevada or Utah today, where would you get the water? The answer is you can't. There is no water available. And before you say, just drill a well, let me stop you. Groundwater in the Great Basin is limited. Aquifers here recharge incredibly slowly because there's so little rain. Pump them too hard and they collapse. Las Vegas knows this. They've been fighting for decades to access groundwater from rural Nevada counties. And those counties have been fighting back because they know that once that water is gone, it's gone forever. There's no refilling it in a climate that gets 7 inches of rain per year. So let me paint the full picture. You want to build a new city in the empty quarter? First, you have to overcome the fact that it's a high-altitude desert with barely any rain. Second, you have to find private land, which is almost impossible because the federal government owns everything. Third, even if you find private land, you can't get water because all the water was allocated to existing cities a century ago. 3 walls, 3 perfect insurmountable barriers that have kept the Great Basin empty for over 150 years. The empty quarter isn't empty by accident. It's empty by design. It's a void created by geography, locked down by federal ownership, and starved of water by legal agreements made before your great-grandparents were born. And here's the thing that makes this even more insane. It's getting worse. As climate change reduces snowpack in the mountains, the Colorado River is producing even less water than before. Some studies suggest the river's flow has already dropped 10% since 2000. Lakes Mead and Powell, the two largest reservoirs in the United States, are at historic lows. The water crisis is accelerating. And if the existing cities are running out of water, what chance does a new city have? The empty quarter isn't just empty, it's becoming more empty, more locked down, more impossible to develop. A fortress of geography, law, and hydrology that's only growing stronger. So we've solved the mystery. We know why it's empty. But that raises an even weirder question. If people aren't out there, what is? Because here's the thing about empty land. It's perfect for things you want to hide. And America has been hiding things in the empty quarter for a very long time. Start with the most famous one, Area 51, a top-secret military testing facility sitting in the middle of the Nevada desert, 83 miles northwest of Las Vegas. The government didn't even officially acknowledge it existed until 2013. For decades, it was America's worst-kept secret, a place where experimental aircraft were tested far from prying eyes. The U-2 spy plane, the SR-71 Blackbird, the F-117 stealth fighter, all tested at Area 51, all hidden in the void. Why here? Because there's no one around to see. The nearest town is Rachel, Nevada, population about 50 people. The base sits in a restricted military zone surrounded by hundreds of miles of empty desert. If you tried to get close, you'd be turned back at a perimeter gate guarded by heavily armed security, with authorization to use deadly force. Thousands of cameras and motion sensors blanket the approaches. It's one of the most heavily guarded facilities on Earth, and Area 51 isn't alone. The Nevada test site, where America conducted nearly 1,000 nuclear weapons tests during the Cold War, is right next door. Massive explosions that would have terrified any nearby population. Except there was no nearby population, just emptiness. Miles and miles of it. Perfect for blowing up nuclear bombs without anyone noticing. But the government isn't the only one using the void. The ultra-wealthy have discovered it too. Wyoming has become a magnet for billionaires building what are essentially modern fortresses. Massive ranches in remote valleys, far from the chaos of cities, stocked with supplies and ready to serve as bug-out locations if civilization ever collapses. They call it the American Redoubt. Preppers and survivalists buying up land in Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, building self-sufficient compounds where they can wait out whatever disasters the future holds. Why here? Same reason as Area 51. Nobody's around. You can build whatever you want, live however you want, and the rest of the world will never know. The empty quarter offers something increasingly rare in modern America. True isolation. True privacy. A place where you can disappear. There's something almost poetic about it. The same barriers that keep people out make this region perfect for the people who want to be hidden. The government hiding military secrets. Billionaires hiding from the collapse they're sure is coming. All of them taking advantage of a void that exists because of geography, federal policy, and century-old water rights. The empty quarter isn't empty, it's just selectively populated by ghosts, secrets, and people who have something to hide. So here's what we've learned. America's empty quarter isn't a failure of development, it's a fortress. A vast, silent, empty region protected by 3 insurmountable walls. The first wall is the Sierra Nevada and Cascade Range, stealing all the moisture from the Pacific and leaving a high-altitude desert behind. A rain shadow so severe that farming without irrigation is impossible, and cities without imported water cannot exist. The second wall is federal ownership. Over 80% of Nevada, over 60% of Utah and Idaho, locked away under government control. Land you cannot buy, cannot develop, cannot build on. The Bureau of Land Management, sitting on an area larger than France, preserving it exactly as it is forever. The third wall is water rights. Every drop of the Colorado River allocated over a century ago. Every aquifer spoken for. No legal water remaining for any new city, any new development. any new population center. A hydrological death sentence handed down in 1922 and binding for eternity. 3 walls, 3 perfect barriers, creating a void in the middle of America that will never be filled. A secret, empty country hiding right in the middle of our own. And maybe that's exactly how it should be. Maybe some places are meant to stay empty. Maybe some voids are meant to remain voids. Because in a world where every inch of land is developed, paved over, filled in, maybe we need a place that refuses to change. A place that stays silent. A place that stays empty. America's empty quarter. Larger than Western Europe. Emptier than the Sahara, hiding in plain sight. Locked away by mountains, by government, and by water. The last great wilderness in the lower 48. The void that will never be filled. And honestly, I can't decide if that's genius or insane.